All right, I did see this movie on Saturday, and I was trying to get this review out as soon as I could, but I finally got around to doing it. And so here is my review of the much anticipated It, based off Stephen King's 1986 book of the same name that was also made into a movie series that came out in 1990 in September, which is about 27 years ago, which is of some significance, which I'll get to later. And so, before I get into it, of course, I do want to say that I haven't read the book, and for anyone that did, you were much stronger than I. I took one look at that thing. I was like, yeah, maybe a little later. And I haven't seen the original miniseries either, so I can't make too many comments about the similarities and differences to the book or the original miniseries. But are a few things that I've s- uh, read about or have heard that are big differences that I might mention. For those who don't know, the plot is a group of kids, and this takes place in the late '80s, which I know is different from the book, which take place in the '50s. This group of seven kids in the town of Derry, Maine, who know each other from school and such, keep they find that they're seeing these visions of their worst fears embodied in real life.
Bill, if you will come with me, you'll float too.
George, I saw something.
The clown.
And they all eventually realize that they're all being haunted by the same thing, and they keep seeing this clown, Pennywise the clown. And so they team together and they decide that they need to go stop this thing from haunting them, and they discover that it has been haunting the town itself. Every 27 years, it would come out of hiding and cause a series of disappearances and then go back. And so this time they want to put an end to it so it never comes back. And the one of the first things that you might be wary about when you see this is that it is all kids. There's very, very few adult characters, and the adult characters that are there are pretty one dimensional, but it's not a huge deal because they're only in it for a tiny bit. But it's mostly the kids, and that's always a risk. They are 14, 15, 16, so they're a little older. They did a fantastic job as far as I was concerned. I thought all the characters were really well developed through the script and through the acting choices. I mean, they acted like kids, and they cursed like they just found out the meaning of the word, which you'd think that they would, and they made just dumb mom jokes and stuff like that that really made them feel like kids and made them fun characters to be around. And except for there was one character, Mike, who was the African American one, who was not quite as developed as the other ones, which I was kind of disappointed in. He was homeschooled, whereas the other ones all went to school together. So there was a little bit of a reason for there to be distance there, but I would have liked to get to know a little bit more of his story and a little bit more of his personality. But for the most part, all the characters were well done, and I thought the kids did a fantastic job. Of course, the one other big character was Pennywise the clown, or the it, and he's played by Bill Skarsgård, who I know he was in a TV show and is related to Alexander Skarsgård, who is in True Blood and The Legend of Tarzan, and he actually has a bunch of relatives. And I know his father was an actor, and I thought he did a good job as well. I know a lot of people are comparing him to Tim Curry, who was Pennywise in the original miniseries. Like I said, I can't really do that. I love Tim Curry, so I imagine he did a very good job. I hear he was the best part of the miniseries, but I haven't seen it. But Skarsgård, I thought, did a good job. I was definitely scared of the clown in many, many scenes. But I don't know how much of it to put on him because it was sometimes hard to tell when it was him or when it was CGI or special effects that were helping him move a certain way or do certain things. And over the course of the movie, it's 2 hour and 15 minutes runtime. It definitely didn't feel that long. Um, and it starts out, there's the boat scene in the trailer where Georgie, who is one of the main kids' brother, uh, loses the boat, and that kind of kicks things off. And it was kind of a mix that there'd be some scary things, and then you'd have some scenes where things would calm down and you get to be with the kids. And there were some very 80s moments. There was a montage with 80s music. It felt 80s because you've got this gang of kids, so it's like it's Goonies or it's Monster Squad. I was like, yeah, let's do it. I was all over it. But then all of a sudden, these kids would be laughing, having fun, going swimming, and all of a sudden you'd be back, in the sewers. And stuff would be popping out of nowhere, and there'd be blood pouring out of the walls. And so it was kind of a big switch, back and forth from those things. But I thought it did good to let you feel safe a little bit and then pull you back in. Unfortunately, I thought they made a little bit too much use of some jump scares that by hour and 15, hour and 30 minutes, I was kind of like, okay, I get it. I know what you're doing, and it's not affecting me anymore. It's not scaring me anymore. And when you're going into a horror thriller film, kind of being scared is what you want, and or at least what I want. And so there was a little bit of a slow part there in kind of the later part, but then once it started getting to the climax of the film, I was more interested again. And I never got too disinterested because, like I said, I really enjoyed the characters, and the characters kept me going throughout the film. And I wanted to see what happened to these kids and to the other characters in the film, and to Pennywise. So I wasn't too bored, but there was that slow part where the jump scares weren't doing it for me, and also where the kids kind of fell into that horror trap where thought they were doing stuff that was really dumb. And yes, they are kids, and I recognize that, but it was things where it seemed like they knew and they recognized and they said not to do certain things, and then they would do them anyway. And so that was part where I was kind of like losing my sympathy for them a little bit, because I was like, okay, like we've been here before, guys, and you just said XYZ, and now you're doing XYZ. And so that kind of helped with that dragging area, but overall still wanted to know what happened. And there was a lot of disturbing imagery. Again, that opening scene sets the tone that yes, this is disturbing. There's some gross things that happen in this movie. There's some gory things, and those got to me as well. There was parts where I was just like, oh, oh, okay. And I was uncomfortable. And again, in a movie that's a thriller or a horror film like this, I wouldn't know exactly where to put it. That's what I wanted, and it was kind of making me squirm a little bit, and it was very, very effective at that throughout the film. So overall, I definitely think this was above a solid movie. I don't think it was great or amazing because, as I said, there was that kind of like 20-25 minute period where I was kind of like not as into it. I was like a little, but at the end of the film, and this film does set it up for a sequel. I wanted to know what happened next in this story that they had, and for the most part of the film, I was enjoying it. And aside from that slow part, and aside from a few things the characters did, I thought it was a very good movie. So above solid for me. And I'll be back next time. Thanks, guys.